require either dialysis and or kidney transplants. And I think the reason for speaking here tonight is we're going to kind of talk about one of the biggest things that we see, which is kidney disease as it relates to folks with diabetes. Diabetes, as you'll see, is the most common cause of what we call chronic kidney disease or chronic damage or kidney failure, and is the most common reason why folks end up requiring dialysis or kidney transplant. If you walk into any dialysis unit in this country, at least 50% of folks, if not more, are there because of diabetes. The reason, the one message that I want to get across this evening is that it's very important to detect in folks with diabetes if there's any kidney issues early on, because there are things that can be done to try and stabilize or at least decrease the chances that kidney damage may continue in the future. So, having said that, so the first slide tells us the potential complications of diabetes, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Heart disease, all of these complications are basically caused by the same process. That is damage to the blood vessels caused by diabetes. And depending on which organ or organ system is involved will then dictate which type of complication we may see in folks with diabetes. So if there's damage to the circulatory system or the vascular system involving the heart, we end up with heart disease, heart attacks, congestive heart failure, etc. If the vasculature or the circulation in the brain is involved, we see things like strokes. If it's the blood vessels in the eyes that are damaged by diabetes, we get vision problems, diabetic retinopathy, vision impairment, blindness, etc. If it's the blood vessels that supply blood to various nerves in the body, we can end up with things like neuropathy, for example, the pins and needles feelings that you can get in the feet or the legs, or the nerves to the bladder may be damaged so that the bladder doesn't empty normally, or the nerves that supply the stomach may become damaged such that the stomach doesn't empty normally following a meal. And then lastly, of course, would be the kidneys. If the blood vessels in the kidneys are affected by diabetes, we end up with kidney disease or diabetic kidney disease in this case. What's the role of the kidneys? Very simply, the role of the kidneys is to filter the blood in order to remove waste products along with excess salt and excess water that we take in. The kidneys, under normal circumstances, keep the salt and water in our body in an even balance. In other words, if we drink a lot of water, the kidneys will increase the excretion of water, get rid of the excess water. If we eat a lot of salt, the kidneys will get rid of the extra salt. If we decide to fast and not drink a lot of water, the kidneys will then hold on to more fluid in the body. So they keep us in a steady state. Otherwise, we would either swell up and burst, or we would dehydrate. So that's the basic role of the kidneys, to remove waste products and to remove excess salt and water to keep everything in balance. So, what happens when things go wrong? Again, in the context of diabetes, when things go wrong, we get what we call diabetic kidney disease. Just some terminology. If you have diabetes and you see your physician or you read some of the literature, you'll see several things pop up, like chronic kidney disease or CKD. Chronic kidney disease or CKD is kind of a generic term for a disease. So the other way you could think about it is you can substitute the word disease with damage. So chronic kidney damage is another way of saying the same thing. Another way of saying the same thing is kidney failure, although you don't hear that term used as much any longer. Most of the time, your physician, if he's talking to you about this kind of thing, is probably going to use the words chronic kidney disease or kidney damage or he or she may say, oh, your levels are a little bit off. And we'll talk about what these levels are here in a second. The things that tell us if there is a kidney problem present. One is to check just a routine urine analysis. And in folks that start early to have diabetic kidney disease, one of the first things you'll see is when your doctor checks the urine is you'll see protein in the urine. What's happening in that situation is that as the kidneys are filtering the blood, their job is to hold on to the good stuff, get rid of the bad stuff. When the kidneys first start to become affected from diabetes and to first develop damage, something goes wrong as they filter the blood so that now they're leaking a little bit of protein into the blood. So this is the very first sign of a kidney problem in folks with diabetes, if a kidney problem is going to develop. The other things then that will tell us if there's a kidney problem will be things that we see on blood work, basically just routine blood tests. As a kidney doctor, we look at two things on the routine blood test. One is something called the creatinine level that you may have heard. The creatinine level, again, is something that's measured on just routine blood chemistries. It's one of the things that tells us about kidney function. In other words, it tells us how well the kidneys are filtering the blood. A normal creatinine level is in the range of around 1. Then the higher the level, it means that kidney damage is present. So if your level is 1.5, which is above normal, it means there's a little bit of kidney damage present. The higher it goes, the worse the kidney damage actually is. The other thing that we look at on the blood work is something called, it goes by the initials GFR. The medical term for that is glomerular filtration rate. Again, it's telling us how well do the kidneys filter the blood. What is the rate of filtration? Okay? A normal GFR number, or sometimes I'll just call it a filtration number, is anything that's above 60. When the kidneys start to get damaged, we see that number fall. If it's below 60, it means there's kidney damage. So three things we look at. Is there protein in the urine? Is the creatinine level elevated? And is that filtration number reduced to below normal?